Nichols is a world-class athlete with a passion for challenging herself and others. From a young age, her passion for sports and adventure has driven her. And no matter what obstacles life throws her way, she takes the challenge head on. After suffering a spinal cord injury at age 17 while attempting a backflip on her snowboard, Alana quickly transitioned to adaptive sports. With hard work and determination, she became the first American female to win gold medals at both summer, wheelchair basketball, and winter alpine ski racing, Olympic and Paralympic Games.
So you participated in alpine skiing, basketball, and sprint kayaking in the Paralympic Games. Which was your favorite sport if you had one?
Yeah, well, every sport, it's kind of hard to choose, but every sport really has its like great things about it. I loved being a part of a team and accomplishing a goal with 11 other women on the basketball team. As an alpine ski racer, I really appreciated that, my wins or losses were like completely my own. I didn't have anybody to blame for anything. And then, sprint kayak, I can definitely say wasn't my favorite, mostly because I dove into that head first thinking that I can do anything, but I'm actually not much of an endurance sport athlete. Mm-hmm. So once I got into that and realized you have to train endurance then to sprint, I had such a hard time. And so between basketball and alpine, I'd have to say alpine skiing because it's outside and that's just more my vibe. I love, being on top of a mountain and looking out at the most wonderful things you can see in the world.
Can you tell us a little bit about what happened that caused you to become paralyzed from the waist down?
Yeah, sure. So I, like I mentioned, was snowboarding. As a senior in high school, it was in 2000. I had been kind of obsessing about trying a backflip on a snowboard. And, as a 17-year-old, and I was a risk taker at heart. Whenever I had a chance to like slide into home plate, it was always face first. I wasn't conservative by any means. And so when it came around to the winter of my senior year in high school, a couple of my friends and I just had this real itch to get out in the snow. It hadn't snowed a lot, but we had just gotten a good amount. It fell in the southern part of Colorado, which is kind of close to where I'm from. And basically I just decided I wanted to try my backflip. It was pretty impulsive. As I was headed towards that jump, I wanted to not under rotate the backflip. So I threw my feet over my head as hard as I could, ended up doing a 1.5 backflip. Landed on my back, and then later learned I had also landed on a rock that was underneath the snow. So the impact broke my back in 3 places. The bone shards that broke then flew through my spinal cord, and that's what caused my paralysis.
It's really intense. But you've overcome so many challenges as a result. So when you were competing, what was your daily regimen or training like to prepare for a specific game?
Well,
and prior to obviously going to the Olympic.
Yeah. So it depended on the sport, but I generally I trained as a full-time job. So at times I lived at the Olympic Training Center for a couple of years. And with that, it was like wake up, eat, workout, eat, take a rest, workout, eat, workout, sleep. So, it was very much a full-time job. As an alpine skier, I found myself on the mountain at the first lift, which was usually around 8, ski until noon, do video, eat some food, get back on the snow, video, and then work out and recover.
Okay.
So, when you're a full-time Paralympic athlete, you train all day like somebody would work at a job.
Right. Okay. Well, no, that makes sense. And so then was there anything aside from your physical training that you did for your emotional / mental health well-being?
I'm a very big believer in therapy. I am currently in therapy. I'm always in therapy. I think it's really important to have somebody to kind of talk through some things with. We worked very closely with a sports psychologist, which I think is really important. And a lot of what we did was we meditated and visualized our success. And, when things got tough, maybe even within the group dynamic, like whether I was not getting along with the coach or another teammate, we always kind of referred to our sports psychologist for that stuff as well. So, I mean, can't do it alone. I think it's really important to reach out and make sure that you're not trying to navigate some of the harder things by yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I have a therapist. I've had her since, well, not the same one, but I've been in therapy since I was in 5th grade. So what was I, like 10, 11? I mean, yeah, the world would be a better place if everyone was in therapy. So
Agreed.
I totally get it and support all of that. Being a Paralympic, there were clearly some accommodations or adaptive equipment that you used. Can you explain some of, like, for instance, some of the equipment, specifically, for instance, your skiing, and you did wheelchair basketball. So,
yeah. So every sport requires a different piece of equipment, all of which are not cheap. So, I mentioned my husband's foundation. They raise money for folks that need this adaptive equipment to get back into sports. So for basketball, I had a specific chair that would be like the equivalent of a pair of basketball shoes for an able-bodied person, right? Okay. So they work differently. So a basketball chair has slanted wheels. It has straps that go across your hips and then across your knees. There's actually 2 wheels on the back of the chair so you don't fall over when you're shooting or if somebody hits you. And then for alpine skiing, I use what's called a monoski, which is a machine that you sit on. It has a motorcycle shock, essentially a seat, which we call a bucket, that has straps as well. So you want to strap into that. And then it's all connected to a single ski. So it's a regular ski. Like if you go skiing, you would put 2 of them on your feet. I just put 1 on the bottom of this machine. And then on my forearms, I have what are called outriggers, which are essentially like forearm crutches, but shorter and with skis on the end of them. So you can totally Google like my name and see what that looks like, I guess. Yeah. And then for sprint kayak, I didn't have to do a lot of adapting to that. But I did need my own seat with straps. So essentially, like, you want to strap your body into whatever you're doing is kind of the key, at least for a paraplegic like myself. For amputees or somebody with, I don't know, any other kind of disability, it's different, but
different, right? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of catered to what the disability is. But anyways, I actually had no idea that for instance, basketball, there's like a Paralympic, like that. I mean, wheelchair. I would have never even thought about that.
Yeah, they're super aggressive and you can turn really fast in them and stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've never actually I take it back when I was in high school because I had to, do physical education and all of that. I played basketball, but other than that, I work out 5 days a week. I do swim. I play tennis, but basketball was never something I was super interested in. Kayaking is actually great. Yeah. I just don't have the time to do it.
Right.
I don't really go anywhere to do it. I'm go out to Long Island and they don't really have a lot of kayaking out there. So you're leading the charge for people with disabilities when it comes to learning how to surf, and finding their own love, to dream big despite having a disability and so forth. And obviously you're very involved, just generally speaking, with surfing, aside from taking this charge. So how did you decide to get into surfing?
Well, it kind of found me. I was on a vacation trip with my grandparents. we went out to Hawaii. My grandma wanted to see the Pearl Harbor Museum. So we were on Oahu. And while I was there, I learned about a program called Access Surf, which is basically functions as a nonprofit to give people with disabilities the opportunity to get in the ocean and learn how to surf.
Right.
And they weren't really even operating the day that I contacted them, but they went out of their way to get me out in the water and, have me ride my first wave. And it was amazing. I like to say it ruined my life because I couldn't not surf after that first wave. I had to keep going. So, I ended up moving out to Southern California. I lived in San Diego for about 5 years, where I surfed as often as I could. Most days I surfed. And then I got into competitive surfing as well. So there's a whole group of folks with disabilities in Southern California that all are super passionate about surfing. And I just kind of joined in that crew. And then one thing that we're really hoping is that it gets into the games in 2028, which will be held in LA. So yeah, we're working pretty diligently on making that happen. And, it's one of the funnest, most freeing experiences I've ever had is talk about overcoming challenges. It's how do you get somebody with paralysis, across the sand and into the ocean, and then finally onto a wave and surfing it. It's the ultimate feeling of accomplishment and just pure joy. And it's very meditative because once you're on the wave, you can't really think of anything else. And even whenever you're getting tousled by the wave, you kind of low key enjoy it. You're just wow, this is great. At least I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to watch you actually get on a surfboard and ride yourself out onto the ocean is quite remarkable. So it's great that you're teaching others about surfing and, about it's very meditative. And I think being on the water, just in general, whatever you're doing, is great for the body and the mind and so forth. So you're the first female to win gold in both the summer and winter Paralympics. That's a tremendous feat. So congrats. Do you consider this to be your career highlight to date?
Yeah, I mean, I feel so fortunate to have made history that day because there's a lot of things that have to fall into place in order for that timing to kind of favor you. So I feel like I did my part in terms of preparing and winning on that exact day. But as far as making history and becoming the first, that I just feel completely fortunate for. It was by far the most amazing and emotional and powerful moment of my athletic career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be mine. So in your opinion, what, and you talked a little bit about this, but what to you does the Paralympics mean for people who have disabilities or, any type of medical condition?
I think it is a symbol of the spirit of humanity, expressing itself to its fullest. So no matter who you are, what your body looks like, how it functions, you can do the best you are able to with what you have to work with. And I think that's what the Paralympics is about. Every athlete that makes it to that level has embraced their situation, whether they're missing a limb or paralyzed or have a brain injury or cerebral palsy or visual impairment, whatever it is, they've all embraced it and said, I'm going to do the best I can with what I have. Mm-hmm. And I want to be the best in my category. Mm-hmm. And so, I think the Paralympics is really encouraging because it helps you see things a little differently. I have been fully blown away by some of the Paralympic athletes that I've met. folks with like literally no arms or no legs that are in swimming competitions or, whatever that looks like. It's like, it just gives you perspective. So I encourage anybody listening to Google it, YouTube it, watch it when it's live, like just really embrace it. It's powerful.
So lastly, what advice would you give to others who have a disability and want to get into adaptive sports?
I always say, instead of just do it, like Nike says, just do it, I say, just try it. Just try it. Like, one of the reasons my life changed so dramatically was the day that I saw wheelchair basketball being played. I just tried it. I just got into a basketball chair and I tried it. And then I realized like, oh, this is way more challenging than I thought. And I respect people that have, pushed themselves outside of their comfort zone and decided to do it. And so, in every other sport that I've tried, I really loved. And, it's all within reason, and don't take any huge risks that might put your life in danger, but just try it. Like, Get out there, try it. You might love it.
Right.
That's my advice.
Absolutely. No, and I think sports overall is it's great. I think just even from a standpoint of endurance and getting your endorphins going and emotional well-being. I mean, I can't go more than a day without working out. I don't know how people like don't work out or do any types of sports.
Yeah, that's I'm an outside
whole other thing.
Yeah. That part of my experience after my injury was I fell into a pretty dark depression after I broke my back. And I realized it was because I didn't move. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't moving and sweating and getting my endorphins going. So, I'm grateful for adaptive sports for that reason. It's kept my life, afloat, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This was so great. Thanks, Alana, for doing this with me.